Good day everyone, welcome back to my channel. Now, for today's video, I'm going to answer one of the questions coming from my viewer. And the question is coming from Daniel Vera. You've actually asked me this question: am I able to make use of this Lian AL120 fan to be mounted on the radiator of the Arctic Liquid Freezer 2? Now, I'm going to show you how, and at the meantime, I will be showing you the SL2 if it's possible to actually mount on the radiator. And your another question is, after when you mount on the radiator itself, how do you actually control the fans and the ARGB? Because the cooler itself, right, it does have a cable that connects the fan load and the ARGB. Let's find out. I've actually unscrewed all the fan screws on the radiator itself. Then I can remove this. And when you remove this, right, do be careful. Now, do take note that this is actually the ARGB liquid freezer version, whereby you have two cables. One is actually for the fan connection, and the other one is actually for the ARGB. So you need to detach both of them. And on the pump side itself, right, it does come with the fan connector and the ARGB, which is linked to the back over here, where you connect the original Arctic fans. For the original version that does not comes with ARGB, right, it does not have this cable, the ARGB cable. I'll first start off with the AL fans. On the website itself, right, it mentioned that this cannot be mounted. I believe it's due to this groove here, which is actually blocking. And when I try, let's see if I could fasten this. Now let me give you a clearer picture. As you can see, the groove over here, this is actually hitting the hose itself over here. So when you feed it in, right, kindly do not force it too much. And due to this gradual sloping itself, right, or should I say not so thick, you still can mount it, but it's going to be very tight. So don't push it too hard. You still can house it. Just make sure that you hold it when you screw it to the radiator. See, this is done. And on the other, right, you will need to actually push a bit. Then you will be able to fit it. I'm going to fasten all the screws and to show you the final product. Alright, there you have it. It's actually fastened, and this here, this clip, you can actually connect it, not a problem. Now, in the event when I'm actually fastening it, right, I have actually loosened the screws to adjust the alignment of the screw holes. So do take note on this, and try not to actually force it too much, because if you force it too much, right, the threading on the radiator might just cut off and you can't actually grip it. So do it gently. So do minor adjustment as possible. Now, this is okay, as you can see. Hopefully you can actually see over here. This is the point that I'm showing you. So your hose might be off a bit, but not too much. And another thing to take note, that if you were to place it like the case itself, right, this is actually the front, right, you can only mount it this way. Okay, this is probably intake, so you can actually flip it over, but make sure that this clip, right, is actually above and your hose is actually below, and this is actually assuming your processor. Now, if you were to mount at the top itself, right, again, your clip must be at the back. The hose will be in front, or you can actually mount it the other way, up to you. But if you were to mount it this way, right, where the hose is actually in front, this is actually the top of the case, make sure that this is actually facing the back, I mean the clip itself, and not the front, because you can't fit at all. This is actually for the AL. I will show you on the SL. As for the SL itself, right, I'm so sorry to say that you are not able to mount it over here. Reason being, right, this is actually too thick. I mean the height itself. So there is a blockage on the hose, and you can't align the hose with the radiator itself, not at all. But you can, however, mount it instead of this side. You can mount it the other side, which is here. Not an issue. So it depends on what you want to actually do with it. Now I'll go back to the AL itself and to show you the connection, how it's been done, as questioned by Daniel. I will split this to two sections. One is actually for the ARGB, which is this, and this is actually the fan connector. So be it whether on the SL or the AL itself, right, it does come with this connection. And how do you actually connect? I'll start off with the fan connection. From the AL fans itself, right, you can either make use of the Arctic liquid freezer that comes with this header. Now there are two headers over here. Make sure you connect to the correct one. I'm going to zoom in. If you're going to use this connector itself, right, make sure that you do not connect the connector that is missing one pin, because you will lose control, as in like you can't control the fans at all. Make sure you connect to the 4 pin. So on your AL itself, right, the fan connector, connect to the connector over here. And this connector, right, in fact links all the way to your pump, and this is actually the connector. Now this connector not only control the fan RPMs and such, it will give current to your pump that runs on full speed. So this is going to connect to your motherboard. The motherboard itself, right, you have two headers. One is actually for CPU, the other one for CPU/pump. For this board itself, right, which is actually the ASRock Steel Legend B550M board, I can directly connect to the CPU pump. For some motherboard, right, if you were to connect to the CPU pump itself and not the CPU itself, it will not boot. But for this board, I'm actually able to do so, so I will connect to here. Then from there, right, you can actually control the fan and to run your pump at full speed. If you choose the second option, which is you have to actually cable tie this and to hide one side from the Arctic liquid freezer itself. Now you can make use of the controller, the unit controller, where you connect the fan header over here. Then at the other end, whereby you have these two cables on the controller itself. One is for the ARGB, one is actually for the fan header. Now this you will have to actually connect to CPU 1 or CPU 2. Then you can actually adjust the fan curve through your motherboard and make sure that your L connect itself, right, is set to PWM. Now I'm not going to go into details. If you want to know how is this connection done, right, with the control unit itself, I have a separate video. You can check it out on the top right hand corner. I'll leave the URL over there. So by doing so, right, you can actually control the fan through the controller itself. I mean these two fans through the controller itself that takes the reading on the motherboard. And please do not forget that you need to connect this to your motherboard too, because this will actually give current to your pump. But I would advise, most recommended way is not to let the controller control the fan RPMs, because in the event if this fail, right, and your fan fail, right, meaning you say your processor will probably get damaged due to overheating. So I would not advise you to do option 2. I would advise you to do option 1, whereby you connect this directly to the cooler fan header and using this connection on your motherboard, and let your motherboard control the RPMs and to sense the reading. So this is actually the fan load. Now for the ARGB load itself, right, you can't connect to the cooler connector because it's of a different connection. So you have no choice but to connect to the unit controller and let the unit controller itself, right, the L connect application, to run the effect itself. So this is actually how it's been done. There you have it. I hope I've actually answered your question, Daniel. And for those of you who are actually new, right, welcome to my channel. And if you like my content, do remember to subscribe and to click on the notification bell button. Till then, take care. Goodbye. See ya.